Hello everyone and welcome! In today's video, I'm going to be attempting to recreate the infamous Kelsey Hayes Warrior wheel for use with these smaller scale radio-controlled models. Now, if you're not familiar with the illustrious history of this particular wheel design, well, the infamy will become apparent as we dive deeper into the story. But as you'll recall if you've been following along with this channel here recently, a couple weeks ago I completed this 1/25th scale 69 Dodge Charger. A very fun project that turned out looking great in the end. I was able to successfully take the great looks of this plastic model kit from MPC and secure it on top of our FFR SC1 chassis. Of course, you can check out the previous video if you'd like to learn more about this Charger, but just an all-around very simple project that ended up turning out great in the end and is a lot of fun to drive. Also, a nice little reprieve from some of the other projects I've been working on recently. On that note, for those who prefer watching the builds that really make me suffer, be sure to tune in next week for the finale of this 69 Chevelle, as there are certainly a few challenges there. But ever since that Charger build, the Mopar fans are coming out of the woodwork, and today's video is a response to a request from a very generous Patreon member who is interested in having a set of these Kelsey Hayes Warrior wheels for use with their project. We're building up quite the selection of wheel STL files for 3D printing over on our Patreon, but of course I'm always open to requests, and while I can't make any promises, I do really enjoy designing these wheels, and I figured I would give it a try here with this Warrior wheel design, which could be found on select Dodge and Plymouth vehicles for a very brief period of time. And it really is a fantastic looking wheel in my opinion, which kind of makes what would transpire soon after a bit unfortunate. But before we dive into that story, as usual, I'm using Autodesk Fusion to design this wheel. I've been using Fusion for quite a number of years at this point. It's a really great all-in-one package for a variety of different design and manufacturing needs. When I first started using Fusion, at the time it was known as Fusion 360, it was free for hobbyists, but I'm not sure if that's the case anymore. I know I get a lot of people who are new to the hobby or new to 3D modeling who are looking for software recommendations, and unfortunately I'm not sure if there's still a free option for Fusion for hobbyists or people learning. Because I've been using it for so long, I've just sort of stuck with it. Unfortunately though, if you're brand new and are looking for some low cost or free software, I'm not sure what the best options might be. I know I've heard some good things about FreeCAD, but I've not used that software for probably well over 10 years at this point, so unfortunately outside of either Fusion or Blender, I haven't really used anything else for many years at this point. I've just kind of stuck with what I know. I wish I could offer some more advice for anyone interested in getting started with 3D modeling, whether that be your own RC chassis or just some parts and accessories, but I only know what I know, and what I know is software that may no longer be the best option for a hobbyist looking for a low-cost or no-cost software. Also, fun fact, the third mouse button, or whatever you call the mouse button that you use by pressing in the scroll wheel, was broke, so I had to keep reaching up into this upper right-hand corner and rotating my view that way, so yeah, that made things fun. It made adjusting the view from time to time a bit annoying, though I did kind of get used to it before too long. Now, like with a lot of things here on the channel, I'm not necessarily going for absolute perfection here. There's obviously going to need to be some compromise in the design. This is not only to allow compatibility with these functional RC chassis, but also simply due to the fact that I'm not working off of any real-world dimensions or 3D scans, just some pictures that I've collected from online. I do have a nice assortment of pictures to reference up on my second monitor, and I'll also have some posted here on the screen for you guys to see as I'm working on the design. You'll see in the end, I think I was able to capture at least the overall look quite well. Surely not 100% accurate, but I think certainly close enough to satisfy at least the majority of RC model car builders. Now, if you're an automotive engineering and history nerd like I am, the story of the Kelsey Hayes W23 Warrior wheels is rather interesting. I think we can all agree that a wheel design can really make or even break a vehicle, not only from a design perspective, but even sometimes literally, as we'll soon find out. And that's as true today as it was during the late 1960s. While automotive wheels made from lightweight materials such as aluminum have existed since the 1920s, for decades these were really only limited to purpose-built race cars and very expensive high-performance vehicles. For everything else, more stylish and race-ready wheel options would have to be obtained through the aftermarket. Throughout the 1960s though, automotive designers were clearly getting inspired by these aftermarket options. While this would often result in simple wheel covers that, although stylish, were simply covering a good old-fashioned conventional function-over-form steel wheel underneath, true alloy wheels would also become optional on certain high-performance models such as the Corvette. While alloy wheels offered style, a lighter weight, and other advantages such as helping to dissipate heat from the brakes, larger scale, cost-effective manufacturing while simultaneously ensuring sufficient quality and durability standards took time to develop, resulting in alloy wheels being a rather rare sight on vehicles throughout the 1960s and 70s, especially compared to today, where thanks to many advancements in manufacturing technology, stylish and unique alloy wheels are quite common. Naturally, automakers were interested in finding a balance of style and cost whenever possible. The Chevrolet Rally wheel is a great example of mixing form and function, dressing up an otherwise basic and cheap to manufacture stamped steel wheel that looks great on everything from a Corvette to a pickup. But Chrysler, in collaboration with Kelsey Hayes, had what seemed like a great solution for a stylish wheel design that they could offer on some of their high-performance models sold by Dodge and Plymouth. The idea was to save on manufacturing costs by offering an alloy wheel that was really kind of a hybrid of an alloy and steel wheel. It would have an outer rim made of steel, while the center would be aluminum riveted in place around the outer perimeter. You can kind of get an idea of how this worked by looking at the backside of the wheel, but from the exterior, it looks like a proper, stylish alloy wheel. And again, while today it might not be anything special to offer alloy wheels on anything from a Civic to a Suburban and everything in between, in the late 1960s, this was definitely some style, and alloy wheels was something to brag about, even if they were technically just an alloy center riveted to an outer steel rim. From the brochure that I looked at, it referred to them only as an aluminum wheel, and even described them as the McCoy, which maybe could be argued, but I digress. The real downfall, though, was as a result of combining that aluminum center with a steel outer rim. While it may have seemed like a great cost-cutting measure, it was quickly realized that these wheels had a tendency to work the lug nuts loose. If my understanding is correct, as a result of this manufacturing process, they were especially prone to flexing or stretching as you're driving, especially hard cornering, which had the potential to eventually work the lug nuts loose, even if they had been properly torqued to spec, which could obviously lead to the wheel coming off entirely. To the credit of Kelsey Hayes and Chrysler, it seems that they identified this issue pretty quickly, as a recall was issued not long after the 1969 model year vehicles had been made available for sale. Apparently, few vehicles equipped with these wheels had been purchased by that point, and any cars that had been ordered with this wheel option, though not yet picked up by the buyer, had to be replaced with one of the other wheel options. Buyers of the cars that had the recalled wheels were notified, and it was requested that they bring the vehicle back to have them replaced, though naturally some of these recalled wheels made it through to the present day and are now quite valuable. And as far as I can tell, that was the end of it. There was never any attempt to fix or resolve this particular wheel design, which I think is a bit of a shame, as I really like the look of it. Definitely something a little different, but I think they look good on some of these 1969 Dodge and Plymouth vehicles. Aftermarket replicas do exist for owners interested in replicating the look, though of course without the whole working the lug nuts loose situation. But just kind of an interesting lesser known story from the muscle car era that I thought was kind of cool. Throughout automotive history, there are a number of instances where optional equipment or even entire vehicles will get canceled prior to being released, or recalled well after being made available for sale. But with this situation, it's interesting how there were just a small number of vehicles that were sold before getting recalled, making these wheels not completely unobtainium, but certainly very rare. Now, I'm hoping for a little more success with this wheel that I've designed here. Fortunately, in the context of these small-scale radio-controlled models, I'm pretty sure a wheel coming off would not result in a fatal crash, though I guess as always, download and 3D print at your own risk. That said though, I must admit that I have been a little bit inspired by the two-piece design of the real thing. You'll see that I've created two different versions, a more conventional one-piece version and then a two-piece design. One of the challenges of designing a conventional style wheel for an RC chassis is the presence of this nut in the middle, especially on smaller scale models where this M2 size nut can be relatively large when compared to the size of the wheel. For some designs, this isn't really a problem. For example, the OEM style wheels seen here on this Camaro would have a center cap that kind of looks like the functional nut seen here on this small scale RC replica, so the presence of that nut doesn't really detract that much from the appearance. But by comparison, note the lack of any sort of large, protruding center cap on this design here. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say that the nut in the middle ruins the look of this wheel, but in my opinion, it's not exactly ideal. For those looking for a conventional style one-piece wheel that you can simply 3D print and slide onto the axle, this variant here will work just fine. The axle slides all the way through to the front. You just thread on the nuts, very easy, just as you would expect. But as you may have noticed during the design process, initially I created this two-piece design that maintains a more correct, smooth appearance, closer to the look of the real thing. There's a little bit more involved here, but it's still pretty simple. You'll note that the offset is different with this version of the wheel, so keep that in mind. But the outer piece will get secured to the axle just as normal. But then you'll have this separate inner piece that can be threaded onto the end of the axle after the nut. As long as you have your axles cut to the correct length, so there aren't too many or too few threads sticking out beyond the nut, it should work great. Maybe a little bit of a mild adhesive could be put on those threads to make sure that piece doesn't come off, but even if it does, the wheel will still be attached to the car. The inner piece is just there to make the wheel look good. Still more serviceable than simply gluing the wheels to the axle, but you'll still get a more lifelike appearance. Again, with this setup, you just have to make sure that you're cutting the axles to the correct length. Personally, I would definitely at least try to go with the two-piece design, as I think it looks a lot better, but both options are available. These here are obviously just some quick FDM 3D printed prototypes. 3D printing these in a higher resolution material like resin would definitely look better, although even now, I think they look pretty good. Dialing in your settings and using a small size nozzle can produce a pretty nice looking result if you don't have access to a high resolution 3D printer. I'm going to keep the American racing style wheels on this particular Charger, as I think they just pair so nice with this body. It's really hard to go wrong with this style of wheel, especially the staggered look. I'll just consider this a sign that I need to build another 1969 Dodge or Plymouth vehicle. One more thing I'd like to mention is the size of this wheel. The outer diameter is 17.5 millimeters, which conveniently equates to a little over 17 inches in 1/25th scale if I'm doing my math correct. I made the wheels this size primarily so they would fit these specific silicone tires that we sell on our website. I will have those linked along with the STL files if you're interested in using them. I also just thought that the 15-inch size that these came in on the real cars looked maybe just a little bit small if I really wanted to nitpick the appearance. Especially on some of these smaller scale models, sometimes it's nice to enlarge the wheels a little bit, even if technically it's not dimensionally accurate. Sometimes if you make them 100% true to scale, they can look a bit like pizza cutters. But if you're doing a build and you want the correct 15-inch size wheels that will be proportional to a 1/24th or 1/25th scale body, or you would like them made even larger for more of a low-profile tire pro touring look, please feel free to send a message, as simple modifications to the size can be done to fit your particular project or fit a particular set of tires that you'd like to use, whether they be from our website or ones that you've sourced elsewhere. Generally, making simple adjustments to fit your specific 1/24th or 1/25th scale project is very easy to do, so just let me know exactly what you need, and I'd be happy to get them dialed in for you while still ensuring compatibility with our chassis. You of course can adjust the size yourself within your 3D printing slicing software. The only problem though is that you'll also be adjusting the hex on the back of the wheel, which needs to maintain its 4mm size to ensure compatibility. So like I said, if you can send a message telling me exactly what size you need, it's generally no problem to simply make those adjustments to the design without affecting its compatibility with the chassis. But I certainly had a lot of fun designing these wheels and learning the history, and I hope you all enjoyed today's video. The STL files for this wheel have of course been posted over on our Patreon. I'll have that link below in the description. I guess the only question now is, what car do I build to have something to mount these to? Maybe a Daytona, a Super B, a Roadrunner. I don't know, let me know what you think below in the comments. But that's all I've got for today's video. As always, a huge thanks to all of our channel members and Patreon supporters for helping to make these videos possible, and of course a huge thanks to all of you for watching. I'm very excited to be showcasing the conclusion of the 69 Chevelle project in an upcoming video, along with some other cool stuff that I've got in the pipeline. Until then though, best of luck with all of your projects, no matter what you're working on, and I'll see you next time.